Hey everybody, it's Anna and welcome back to my booktube channel. I am coming to you on a day that is as cold, gray, and gloomy as my lipstick and entire outfit is bright red and sunny to bring you my TBR for the Black-a-thon. This is a readathon that is going to be taking place for the entire month of February, which is Black History Month here in the US, and it is a readathon that is focused on reading and uplifting Black and African descended voices and characters in literature. So this is co-hosted by Lauren, the novel Lush, and Jessie from Bow Ties and Books. And this year, the readathon is going to be divided up into two teams. There is a science fiction and fantasy team and a contemporary team. Obviously, I had to pick the science fiction and fantasy team, so each team has different sets of prompts that we're picking from, and there's a whole lot else that's going on involved with the Blackathon, so I'll make sure to link all of the details down below, but right now, I just want to tell you what the science fiction and fantasy challenges are and what books I'm going to be reading to fulfill those challenges. So, got them right here, let's do it. The first challenge is Janelle Monae, which is to read an LGBTQ science fiction or fantasy with a Black protagonist. For this, since I'm like 99% sure that all of my books have LGBT rep in some way, shape, or form, but I know for sure that this one does, I decided to go with An Unkindness of Ghosts by Rivers Solomon. So I will go ahead and read you the back of this. I really loved Rivers Solomon's book, The Deep. They are a non-binary autistic Black author, so I think that that's just great for representation, and I think for the kind of stories that they tell. So here we go. Aster has little to offer folks in the way of rebuttal when they call her ogre and freak. She's used to the names. She only wishes there were more truth to them. If she were truly a monster, she'd be powerful enough to tear down the walls around her until nothing remains of her world. Aster lives in the low-deck slums of the HSS Matilda, a space vessel organized much like the antebellum South. For generations, Matilda has ferried the last of humanity to a mythical promised land. On its way, the ship's leaders have imposed harsh moral restrictions and deep indignities on dark-skinned sharecroppers like Aster. Embroiled in a grudge with a brutal overseer, Aster learns there may be a way to improve her lot, if she's willing to sow the seeds of civil war. I know that this book was pretty divisive. People have very strong and differing opinions on it, what I've heard from when it first came out. And on top of that, this is going to be basically like one of the books that a subscriber sent to me, so I'll be making a dent in my TBR for that. I'm very excited to read it. The next prompt is Nnedi Okorafor. Read a book of Afrofuturism centering a complex and advanced society. I figured what better book to read than one that's actually by Nnedi Okorafor, if I can find it. So I'm going to be reading Who Fears Death by Nnedi Okorafor. I've read a lot of her books, but I haven't read this one. I know that it is pretty heavy and it contains a lot of discussions of rape and sexual assault because that's one of the major themes of the book. So be aware of that going in if you're going to read it for Blackathon or for anything else, and I'll go ahead and tell you about the book. In a post-apocalyptic Africa, a woman who has survived the annihilation of her village and a terrible rape by an enemy general wanders into the desert hoping to die. Instead, she gives birth to an angry baby girl with hair and skin the color of sand. Gripped by the certainty that her daughter is different, special, she names her Onye Sonwu, which means who fears death in an ancient language. Onye is Ewu, a child of rape who is expected to live a life of violence, a half-breed rejected by her community. But as Onye grows, she manifests the beginning of a remarkable and unique magic, and during an inadvertent visit to the spirit realm, she learns something terrifying. Someone powerful is trying to kill her. Desperate to elude her would-be murderer and to understand her own nature, she embarks on a journey in which she grapples with nature, tradition, history, true love, and the spiritual mysteries of her culture, and ultimately learns why she was given the name she bears, Who Fears Death. This sounds absolutely amazing. It's won a ton of awards and is very widely talked about, and I love Nnedi Okorafor's work. So there we go. That's what I'm going to read. All right, the next prompt is David F. Walker, a science fiction and fantasy comic or graphic novel by a Black author with a Black protagonist. So I decided that I wanted to do a reread for this because I have been meaning to reread this comic series now that it's out in its entirety. So I'm going to reread LaGuardia, which is by Nnedi Okorafor. and is artwork done by Tana Ford and James Devlin. So I read this book when it first came out. I have it as single issue comics, so I actually have all of them right here, and I was lucky enough that I got to meet Tana Ford, who's the author, at Emerald City Comic Con last year. We had this really awesome, great talk, and she was kind enough to sign and draw little doodles on all of my comics for me, which I thought was just really great. But this is a story about a woman who is pregnant with a baby that is going to be like the future of a civilization, and there's also like a symbiotic plant that is an alien from another world that is somehow connected to the baby and somehow connected to the woman's like biological processes as she's getting ready to give birth. This has a lot to do with themes of family and diaspora and how culture and tradition is passed down over generations across like generational trauma lines. This was also coming out like at the height of the Muslim travel ban that was going on when President Trump, poop be his name, was restricting like free access through borders to people from majority Muslim countries into the United States. So a lot of this actually does take place at LaGuardia Airport, and there are literal aliens from outer space that are trying to like pass into and out of the new United States. So it definitely has got the social commentary there on some things that are timely and in the news now, but generally also like a part of human history and a part of humans learning to overcome their own distrust of each other and of people that look different. So I'm very much looking forward to rereading that. And then the final prompt is Donnell Clayton, an SFF book with a cunning and ambitious Black protagonist. Now, this book I bought when it first came out. Jessie has been singing its praises, so I know I have to read it, and I'm going to be reading Sleigh by Brittany Morris for this. So let me show you what that's about. By day, 17-year-old Kira Johnson is an honors student, a math tutor, and one of the only Black kids at Jefferson Academy. But at home, she joins hundreds of thousands of Black gamers who duel worldwide as Nubian personas in the secret multiplayer online role-playing card game Sleigh. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. No one knows Kira is the game developer, not her friends, not her family, not even her boyfriend Malcolm, who believes video games are a distraction to keep the Black man from becoming great. But when a teen in Kansas City is murdered over a dispute in the Sleigh world, news of the game reaches mainstream media, and Sleigh is labeled as a racist, exclusionist, violent hub for thugs and criminals. Even worse, Kira faces potentially being sued for anti-white discrimination, and an anonymous troll infiltrates the game, threatening to harass all the players and take over. Driven to save the only world in which she can be herself, Kira must preserve her secret identity and harness what it means to be unapologetically Black in a world intimidated by Blackness. But can she protect her game without losing herself in the process? This sounds amazing. I am a massive gamer, massive nerd, so I was immediately intrigued by the premise of this, and I heard that it has great things to say about a lot of like contemporary discussion about Black folks and other marginalized people creating safe spaces for themselves, and then what happens when they're like accused of being exclusionary and leaving people out when that's really not what the purpose of a safe space is and what it's designed for. So can't wait to read that. And then I also picked out for myself a little bonus book because, well, originally it was because I read the prompts wrong and I thought that there were 5 instead of 4. And I also want to read another book, which I don't think it will be very hard for me to do. I can pretty easily read 4 books in a comic series in a single month. So for that, I picked out a recent purchase, and that is David Mogo Godhunter by Suyi Davies Okungbowa. And this is blurbed as a Nigerian Harry Dresden Files book, so that sounds really interesting. Here's the little blurb for it. Lagos will not be destroyed. The gods have fallen to earth in their thousands, and chaos reigns. Though broken and leaderless, the city endures. David Mogo, demigod and god hunter, has one task. Capture 2 of the most powerful gods in the city and deliver them to the wizard gangster Lukman Ajala. No problem, right? So I feel like this could also fulfill the challenge to read a book with an ambitious Black protagonist and maybe also Afrofuturism. I know that this is a little more fantasy and a little bit less futuristic, but that like genre lines are fluid. Genre, much like gender, is a mutable thing. So those are all of the books that I am going to be reading for Black-a-thon this year. I am super excited to be participating in this readathon. I didn't know that it was going on last year, so I did kind of do a month where I read books only by Black authors, but I'm really excited to have this community to be involved with. And like I said, go make sure that you check out all the links in the description box for information about the other fun events that Jesse and Lauren have planned for everybody to get involved with. Oh, also, I did want to mention, I saw a thread on Twitter, I believe it was started by Kathy, about people that were looking for comic recommendations to fulfill these challenges. I'm going to be making an entire separate video about that, so I'm going to recommend 5 comics that you can read to fulfill the comics or graphic novel challenge for Black-a-thon. And obviously, you know, that's not going to be comprehensive of all of the comics that you could read, but I wanted to specifically recommend comics that I personally have read and have read recently, because I love comics and I don't talk enough about them on this channel. So if you have made it this far into the video, thank you all so much for watching. If you like this video and you'd like to see more of what I do, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because that is the best way to get notified every time I post new videos. Thank you all, as always, very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!